Welcome to the English department of RBNB College, Srirampur, and you are going to study a very interesting poem of your syllabus prescribed at F.Y.B.A compulsory English. So this is the first poem which you are going to study in this video. The title of this poem is A Red, Red Rose, written by Robert Burns. So in this video you will study this short poem under these heads, or we can say this is our lesson plan. First of all, we will see the introduction, that is related about the poet Robert Burns. Next, the second point is what is the central idea of this poem, that is what is the main subject of this poem, that is love. The title itself indicates. The next point, that is the poem is written in 4 stanzas. So our next point is related to each and every stanza of this poem. The first stanza, it describes the pretty and bottomless love. The next point, melodious love. The next point is bottomless love. This is the second stanza of the poem. The next is the immortal love. That is the third stanza of the poem. The last, that is the fourth stanza, describes the faithful love of the lover or the speaker or the poet. And the last part, that is about conclusion part. In the conclusion, we'll study what is the theme of this poem, then how it is loaded with the different poetical devices. Now I come to the first point, that is introduction. It is in this introduction you are going to know about the poet Robert Burns. So Robert Burns, first of all, he is a son of tenant. Okay, and he starts his formal education under the guidance of his father. So then he is also called a national poet of Scotland, and from his childhood the poverty and struggle makes him, we can say, the national poet of Scotland. Then he is also known as the peasant poet, and in his poems he describes the life and culture of Scotland as well as England. His main focus, or his poems celebrates the traditional Scottish culture. So this poem is also not exception of it. When we study his poems, different poems, we'll find that the farm life in Scotland, the class and the religious distinctions is described in his poems. His works makes him a universal poet, though he is called the national poet of Scotland. He becomes a universal poet due to his simplicity, due to his handling of the universal subjects. Unfortunately, this famous poet, universal poet, has got very short life, and he died when he was 37. So due to the heart problem, he dies very soon. Okay, now the second point. Here the first point ends. now we are going to study the second point. That is, what is the central idea of this poem, or what is the subject of this poem? The title indicates red, red rose. So, rose is the symbol of love. So, we can say the subject of this poem is love. And love is universal, we can say, subject. The poem was published in 1794, and this poem, after the publication of this poem, the poet gained the popularity even across the country, and he became the world poet, we can say. When we study this poem, it is a very short poem, consists 4 stanzas, and each stanza, stanza wise, we are going to study them. So when we study this poem, we will notice this thing, that the narrator of this poem is poet himself. Actually, it is not mentioned, but the first person narration indicates that the speaker, the name of the speaker is not mentioned in the poem, but we can easily understand that the speaker is nobody else but the poet himself. And here he describes his love towards his beloved, or his sweetheart, or his love, we can say. And the love is compared here compared with the rose and melody. And he also shows the depth of his love. He says that his love is not shallow one. And he compared his love especially with the red flower, red rose, which is bloomed in the month of June. It means it is just a fresh, we can say. Next, the poet describes the shadow of parting. Next, after half part of the poem, we'll notice this, that the shadow of parting, that means he is going to part from his beloved or sweetheart. And then at the same time, when he parts from his beloved, he never forgets to promises her to be with her till death. That means he is going to say that his love is how it is immortal one. So now we are going to study the poem according to the stanza. The first stanza is, it expresses the pretty, or we can say the beauty of his beloved. So here you see the title is Red, Red Rose. Okay, so as earlier I said that rose is the symbol of love, and this word red indicates the passions of the speaker, or we can say the core focus is on the ardent or passionate love of the speaker. How the poet expresses his love in the first stanza. He says how he compares his love with a beautiful flower, with a fresh flower, and with a melody, we can say. So there are 4 lines in this first stanza. The 4 lines runs like this. He says, Oh, my love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. That means these are the 2 lines. And in these 2 lines, he expressed his love at his beloved or sweetheart. And he says, oh, my love is like a red rose. That means he addressed the first line or the beginning stanza is addressed towards his beloved. And so he says, oh, my love is like a red rose that newly sprung in June. And next he says, oh, my love is like a melody. Oh, my love is like a melody that sweetly played in tune. How simple the stanza is. How within simple language he expresses his love. So, in the first two lines, he says, oh, my love is like a red rose. Means here we see the comparison is made. That is the comparison between his love and the rose, word rose, red rose. It describes the quality of his love, and this word, my love is like. So when there is a word like or as, we have the figure of speech, simile is used. So the conventional image of love is described in the first stanza. And what is the conventional image of love? That is naturally rose. So poet says, my love is like a red rose. But it is, what type of rose it is? That's newly sprung, come out. That's newly sprung in June. So in June, see the atmosphere in this month. In short, we can say that he would like to say, the speaker would like to say, the poet would like to say, or like to compare his love, that he is going to say his love is as fresh as the red rose which is come out in the month of June. It is so fresh, it is so pretty, it is so attractive, it is so fascinating. Okay, so number of adjectives we can use to compare poet's love. So in the first two lines, you see the love and the beautiful flower, attractive, which is red in color, it is compared. But in the next two lines, the comparison shifts, and the poet says, oh, my love is like the melody. The melody. Articles, definite article is used. That means what kind of melody? So perhaps you have heard the words melody makers, or it is very popular word in the field of music. When we listen any song, we see there is different musical instruments are played, and it makes one sound. So this is the impact, this is the result. We never listen the different musical instruments. There is one sound is made, one musical effect is made, and in this way, here the poet would like to compare his love, and that is why the poet says, that is why the speaker says, oh, my love is like the melody which creates musical thought, or which awakes the passions in the listener. And so he says, that's sweetly played in tune. But how the tune of this music is, it is a sweetly played. Okay, so this is a good combination, you can say. This is the good mixing of this tone. The different musical instruments play together and it creates one sound. In this way, he says, that the poet says, that in our life, we have different types of the difficulties we face. Still, he tries to overcome, and how the sounds are mixed with one another. In the same way, he says, the speaker says, my love is like it. So, in this point, you see, that is the pretty and melodious love is described. The word red rose describes the pretty of the love, while the word melody describes the sweet music of his love. That means one is attract to eyes, while one is attract to our ears. So the poem appeals to the senses of human being. The senses are the listener. The senses are the reader. So here the first stanza is over. While in the second stanza, the poet expresses his bottomless love, we can say. And while or his spontaneous love at his beloved, and to describe the love, the poet takes the help of hyperbole, figure of speech. What is hyperbole? It is exaggeration. In the first stanza, you see, simile is used, but in the second stanza, hyperbole or we can say exaggeration is used, and this exaggeration is used to describe his beauty queen, we can say. So his lover, his beloved is the beauty queen of the speaker. And while describing her, now first in the first stanza he describes his love. And in this stanza, the poet is going to describe the beauty of his beloved. And while describing the beauty, he says, how beautiful she is. He says, as fair art thou, my bonny lace. Here bonny lace means the attractive girl. Okay. So, as fair art thou. That means he is going to say that you are so attractive. You are so pretty girl. You are so beautiful girl. And in the next line, the poet says, so deep in love am I. You see the structure. Not I am I. Okay, so deep in love am I. Means the poet is going to say that his love is not shallow. It is not the physical love, we can say. This is the spiritual love. And word deep, that how his love is at her, it is just like the fathom of the sea, or the fathom of the ocean, or we can say it is deeply rooted. So the base of his love is deeply rooted. And in the third line of the second stanza, the poet expresses that his love is not temporary one. It is the perpetual one. It is the permanent one. And so the poet says, and I will love thee, T-H-E-E. This is the old spelling. Nowadays, we use you instead of thee. So the poet says, and I will love thee still, my dear. So here my dear is addressed, that means he is addressing his beloved. And he says, still or until, till the seas gang dry. G-A-N-G. Gang means go. So in this stanza, the poet or the speaker is going to say that his love is not shallow one. His love is bottomless love is described, or it has a very the fathom of the love is described. How it is deeply rooted one, it is described. And here the second stanza of the poem ends. The next, the poet is going to say, or poet is going to depict the picture of his love, and that is immortal love. So what is immortal? Which never dies, which is perpetual, which is permanent. The word immortal is used, or the things having no death is known as, or death or decay is known as immortal. So the immortal love is described in the third stanza of the poem. And so the third stanza, the first line of the third stanza is the repetition of last line of the second stanza. So this is also one of the features of this poem, and in this stanza the poet uses natural images to describe his love. And so the first line of the third stanza is the same, that is, till the seas gang dry, my dear. Means how he is expressing his love. It is a perpetual one, because the seas cannot gang dry. The seas cannot go dry. We know it. That means till the end of the universe. So he is going to say that his love is not temporary. It is not time bound. So the ages after ages will be gone, and his love at her will remain the same one. That is why the poet says, till all the seas, not one sea, till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks. Here, R-O-C-K, rock means here the poet is going to say mountain. Okay, so after seas, all the seas, the poet shifts his attention, the reader's attention, and the rocks, means the mountains, and the rocks melt with the sun. See the second line, very interesting. I am going to repeat these two lines. This third stanza, the speaker says, till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun. Is it possible that the rocks or the mountains can melt with the sunlight? No, it's not possible. Or the seas, all the seas cannot gang dry. So hyperbole is used to express his love. That means, to these two examples, the speaker would like to say that his love is not temporary one. The ages after ages will be past, and his love at her will remain the same. While the last two lines of this third stanza, here the poet proclaims to love her, and in it he says, the speaker says, I will love thee still, I will love thee still, my dear, while sands of life shall run. In short, we can say, the poet, the speaker is going to say that he'll love her till the death or till the end of this universe. So in short, we can say, the platonic, the eternal and immortal love at her is described through the exaggerations, and how he assures her. In this stanza, the poet addresses his beloved and says, he assures her that he is going to love her till the end of this universe. Now, the next, the poet describes about the faithful love. That is, how he is faithful at her. It is described how he is faithful at love. Here, he says, and fare thee well, my only love, only. And farewell means he is going to depart from his beloved, for a specific time. The reason is not mentioned in the poem, but the speaker says, I am going to depart you. Maybe the death, maybe. But if he is departing due to the death, he says, I will come again. Okay, so that is why, or he may go for some days, we can say. The different interpretations can be made on this line. So the poet says, and farewell. That means he is parting. Okay, he is departing from her for some time. And so he says, and farewell my only love. And farewell a while. A while means for a short time. For short period of time, he is going to depart her, he is going to part her. But he assures, and while assuring her, he says, and I will come again, my love. He assures her. And I will, not he says I shall, I will come again, my love, though it were 10,000 miles. Means he never bother about the distance. Means he wants to say that by hook or by crook, or in the sun and shower, by facing any difficulty, he'll come at her. Because here the speaker would like to say, though they have separate bodies, their soul is one. And here I remember the poem written by John Donne, Valediction Forbidding Morning, where the lover and beloved is compared with the two legs of compass. Okay. Now the last part, that is the conclusion. And in the conclusion part, we are going to know about the themes and the different figures of speech used in the poem. So immortal love, okay, and separation is the theme of this poem, and the quality of love is described in this poem. As far as the literary devices used in the poem, we have seen that simile is used. That is, my love is like a red, red rose that newly sprang in June. My love is like a melody that sweetly played in tune. So here, like indicates the simile one. We also studied that the hyperbole is used in the poem. He wants to love her till all the seas gang dry, or the rocks melt with the sun. These things cannot be possible. So here the hyperbole is used to express his love. The enjambment, that is also used in the poem. That is, no punctuation mark is used up to the end. And the example is, oh, my love is like a melody that sweetly played in tune. So no punctuation mark is used here. Then we have the symbols, or different types of the symbol are used, especially the symbol of love, that is red rose. So symbol is used. We have the visual imageries, or natural imageries are used in the poem. That is the seas or rocks, the sun, sand of life, etc. So these imageries, different imageries are used in this poem. When we study the structure of this poem, we'll notice this thing, that there are 4 stanzas, and each stanza consists 4 lines. That means it is a poem of 16 lines. When we see, or when we observe the rhyme scheme of this poem, you will notice A, B, C, B is the rhyme scheme of this poem. So sometime iambic tetrameter or iambic tetrameter is also used. That means sometimes 3 iambic or 4 iambic are used. So I would like to give you example of the iambic tetrameter. That is, there are three emblems are used. Just like that's newly sprung in June. Newly sprung in June. So we have the three emblems are used. Or the emblem tetrameter. That is, as fair art thou, as fair art thou, my bonny lass. So such is the interesting poem, is a forever study for the first semester. I think you like this video. So study it properly. Try to revise the poem in your mind. Thank you to spare time with me. Thanks once again.